All righty. And we are live. Hello. Hello, everyone. To check a few settings really quick. One moment. Looks good. All right. Audio looks good. Video looks good. If anybody is noticing buffering or anything like that, just let me know. Hello, you guys. Hi. Hi. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys are having a fantastic weekend so far, or start to the week, as I know it's Monday for some of you. Thank you so much for being here. Hello, May. Mina, hi. It's good to see you. It's been a while. Chi-chan, hello. Rose from Montana. Oh, it is so good to see you guys. Hello, Rose. Hello, Lavi. Hello from the Netherlands. Oh, thank you for being here. I know it's getting to be in the evening time where you are. Hello, Vivian. Time to learn. Indeed. Indeed. We are back for another Q&A. Cardinal Moonlight, Lexi. Seeing some of my favorite people in here. This is wonderful. Yay. Yay, yay, yay. We'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. I always like to give it a few seconds, 30 seconds, a minute or so, to allow people the time to get the notification, come on in, get cozy, put your feet up, and we'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. Motivational Quest. Hello. I like your name. Hello, Tanya. Ollie, hello. Nice to see you too. Thank you for joining. Oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. I am excited. In just one moment, let me check something really quick. Make sure there's no buffering going on. All right, that should be a little bit better. Should be a little bit better. It is Sunday. It is my favorite day of the week. I love diving into these. I love being here with you guys. I love seeing the familiar faces and the new ones. Welcome or welcome back. Go ahead and get started in just one moment. I always like to triple check. We got a lot of questions coming. Courtney, hey. Long time no see. Welcome. Jackie. Kennedy, Soma. Martha. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. Just a moment. I need some caffeine really quick. So good. So good. Best tea ever. All right, let's go ahead and jump on in. I know we'll have more people coming in as we continue, but welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time to join me on this lovely morning or afternoon or evening, wherever in the world you may be. I love this is genuinely my favorite time of week. It's really become such a joy. The questions you guys ask are insightful. I absolutely love to be here. My aim above everything else is that all of you have a deeper understanding of the law, to take the control back and manifest and create the life that you desire. That's really the entire point of all of this. And I know that there can be a slew of apparent paradoxes and things that we get confused about and tripped up on. So whatever I can do to help with that. Just really quick announcements before we get started and jump in. I've got a lot of resources down in the description box for anybody who's interested in more information about my coaching programs, my workshops and courses, all of that. There's currently a waiting list for one-on-one coaching, but I've got that link down below. And I've also opened up registration for the next round of Mindset Mastery Program, my 12-week group coaching program. All the information is down below. Anything that you need to know, you can find it there. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into some questions. Hi, Missy. Can I go general with revision? Should I affirm for all bad memories with SP to be erased, or should I revise every single memory on its own? Thank you. Good question. You can absolutely go more general if you're speaking about like creating a new story or creating new memories. I assume that's what you mean by going more general. Correct me if I'm wrong. And absolutely, you can do that. We don't have to revise every single memory that was not ideal. I mean, we can, but we certainly don't have to. If it feels like it would be easier for you to just approach it from a clean slate and imagine instead how you would have wanted things to go, imagine conversations and events, circumstances that would imply what you desire, what you would have liked to experience, that's fine too. That's absolutely fine. Revision is such a powerful tool, and it really can be used in so many different ways. We can truly get creative with it because memories are just imaginal acts. Nothing more, nothing less. They're just imaginal acts. It's all in imagination. So if going more general, if creating that new story comes more naturally, do that. Missy, I've had success with worlds within worlds, but I still can't quite control exactly where I'm going. Any tips? Absolutely. And I had the same thing happen. Getting used to it, going into it like the first few times, I certainly, yeah, it feels like you're kind of spinning the globe and wherever you point your fingers, where you land. Um, Going into that hypnagogic state, going into that state akin to sleep, if you have somewhere set in your mind, if you have like a location or specific area that you want to visit, you can absolutely bring that with you, sort of set an intention, so to speak. You can capture that idea before bed or as you're falling into that state and things like that. So sort of get clear on the image, get clear on where that location is, what, things like that. You can absolutely be more definitive and bring that with you into the state akin to sleep. It does take it does take some practice, getting more and more familiar with it, but you have made leaps and bounds of progress in a relatively short amount of time. So I absolutely know that you're going to find your way around this, and it's going to be within no time, you're going to be a master at going anywhere that you want to go. But yeah, you can absolutely set an intention of a place that if you want to experience, you can take that with you into that hypnagogic state, if that makes sense. Oh, thank you, Vivian. Oh, that's kind of you. I recommend Missy's workshops. She has many different ones. It's helping me change my concept about money and abundance. Good. Good. I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, May. The I am meditation would be a suitable way to enhance the quantum leap, right? I am practicing self-inquiry. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, self-inquiry is an incredible practice. It's one that I recommend for everybody. And I'm going to make a video talking more about self-inquiry and non-dualism in general, because Neville's teachings are sort of an introduction into non-duality, and that's a really important thing to cover. Some may see it as a bit more of an advanced topic, and I don't really think so. But yeah, the eye meditation is going to be helpful in so many ways. In absolutely to enhance your ability to uh, navigate the hypnagogic state. 100%. 100%. How to imagine in first person point of view? Good question. It is so it might be a little bit of a practice getting familiar, and I'm assuming that you mean visualization. Um, how to visualize in first person point of view. That's something that we may need to practice a little bit with. I know for a lot of people, we're used to imagining in the third person. I certainly was. I know many people that I've talked to, much more familiar and more natural with the idea of visualizing from the third person. So, like seeing ourselves as if we're watching a movie of ourselves. Um, and that's just something that with practice, getting more acclimated to instead imagining and visualizing through your own eyes, right, through the mind's eye. And there's exercises that you can do to help strengthen that. I always say that the imagination is like a muscle, and that with practicing this and with breaking it down in things that seem more sizable and approachable can be a way to go first. So an example, one of the things that I did was I would practice. I would sit down and I would grab like an object near me. I don't know, like this bunny, this adorable bunny that my husband got me. I would take an object. I would just scan it. I would get familiar with it. I'd get familiar with the touch of it, the weight. I'd try to get as much description as I could, and then I would set it down. I'd close my eyes and I would try to replicate from first person what I was just holding, and just practicing with that, getting used to seeing it through my eyes. So anything like that, like taking an object, holding it in front of you, and getting used to replicating what you are observing from the first person. Another helpful thing, I know, I forget who it was that mentioned this. It wasn't originally my idea, but somebody mentioned something about, oh, that's going to bug me. Who was that? So I forget who it was, but basically you can imagine tying your shoes, right? Like the act of tying your shoes, because that's one that so many of us are familiar with. That it's going to be easier to replicate in your mind from the first person, if that makes sense. So little things like that, just taking 5 or 10 minutes and just putting it into practice over and over again, you're going to start to notice that naturally and automatically you'll be seeing things more from the first person. Yeah, but that is a really good question. Courtney's question: if hot and cold is double-mindedness, what is steady, basically no change at all with respect to a part of life, neither good nor bad? So I want to make sure I understand, Courtney. If hot and cold behavior or hot and cold circumstances in the 3D means double-mindedness, what is steady, no change at all with respect to a part of life? So what would it mean if nothing is changing? I I assume. Well, if you're noticing like things being stagnant or things not appearing differently at all, uh, it could be that I mean, that's the dominant state that we've been in, right? So if I, for the majority of the time am in a state of knowing that money always comes to me, then that's going to be the even keel steady experience that I have in the 3D. Or the opposite. If I am feeling a lot more often into the state of poverty and lack of income or lack of money coming in, if that's where I am more often than not, then that's going to be predominantly my 3D experience. It's going to feel like it's the same, right? There's no fluctuation because I'm more often than not living in that state. I hope I'm making sense, and I hope I'm understanding the question. Um, but if things are appearing steady, that's because more often than not, that's where you've been dwelling internally, if that makes sense. And do correct me if I misunderstood. Joseph Ally, okay, he was the one to message Sue Tying. Fantastic. Thank you for that. John, what's up? What's up? Welcome. Hello, Tracy. Hello, hello. Where was I? Where was I? Hey, Missy, my dog went missing a few days ago, and I've been keeping my thought above water and with positive affirmations and visualizing her home and safe. But my family and people around me um, have doubt. But now I'm starting to worry that it might be too late. If she is dead, is it possible to change that and for her to still come home? Oh, Kennedy, I'm so sorry. I know it's incredibly stressful when something like that happens. When when a pet goes missing or something of that nature. I would firmly, to the best of your ability, and I know because of our conditioning to time, it can seem like as time passes, it feels like the odds are slimmer and slimmer that we're going to get the outcome that we want. And that's one of the areas that we want to, you know, practice getting out of. Like we want to break this illusion of time, like because it's been X amount of time that the odds are now slimmer and slimmer that we're going to get the outcome that we want. Because that's not ever true. That's not ever true. Um, and one thing that might help is to perhaps read about stories or read about instances where, I mean, animals have gone missing for weeks or months at a time and came back safe and sound. Perhaps getting some things to help boost your motivation and sort of give you that keep that faith alive within you, so to speak. Um, because it's never too late. It's never too late. That's not a that's not a thing. It's an illusion. That's a perception. It's never too late. Just continue to be steadfast. And again, I know it can be challenging when the 3D is showing us the exact opposite, but just continue to imagine like having her back home, everything is safe and sound, that relief that would come with that, like the feeling of relief more than anything. That's the part to keep well focused on in this time. But know that it's never too late. Ever too late. Ever. Hello, Missy. How do you forgive SP who has wronged not me, but someone else? I want to see him as a good person again who I can trust, but not sure how to revise as this didn't even happen to me. Good question. So, how to revise a scenario that didn't happen to you, but somebody else, I take it? Well, you can revise hearing about it. You can revise, like, if this was news that you received, if somebody told you that perhaps SP did something to somebody else that was not ideal, you can revise that conversation. You can revise, whatever may have happened that brought that into awareness. You can revise that, right? So even if it wasn't us that had the negative experience, we did have the experience of learning about it or hearing about it, right? It came into our awareness in some form or another, and that can be revised. I hope that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. All right, let me go back. Let me go back. Hi, Missy. Is it possible for me to manifest an apartment for free, even if in my country it is not legal, or it is not even a thing to do like house giveaways and contests or things like that? I mean, absolutely. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Because ultimately, if the desire is to manifest an apartment or a dwelling space for free, there's ways that that could happen that are not just like winning a contest, right? And this is kind of where we need to like broaden our scope and understand that uh, in our awareness, like as the ego, we're not going to be able to see all of the ways in which our desire can come to pass. It's just not going to be a thing that we can do. So I would imagine I would go to the end of, either sitting in your apartment and feeling that satisfaction of like, this is my place and I stay here for free. Or you can have a conversation with somebody in imagination, right? You can imagine yourself having a dialogue with somebody and hearing them congratulate you for the wonderful outcome, right? So even if, and again, this comes back to the circumstances, they never ever matter. You just, all we're asked to do is go to that place where it's already done in our mind. Construct that space and imagination where you already have what you want, it's already finished, and just continue to let yourself enjoy that, right? And when your mind comes back with, well, how is it going to happen? How's it going to happen? Not our job. Not our job consciously to know. But absolutely, it's possible because anything is possible. If you can imagine it, you can experience it. Full stop. Does seeing the opposite in the 3D mean double mindedness? Or is it just the purging out of old beliefs? Because I haven't been double minded through observation and I saw the opposite. And yeah, it can be, it can absolutely be frustrating when we're seeing things in the 3D that are not desirable. Um, yeah, if we're seeing the opposite, if we're observing the opposite in the 3D is just feedback. It's just feedback. That's all. That's all. So if we're observing something in the 3D, at one point that was an impression subconsciously, whether we were aware of it or not. That is what that means. I'm the whole idea of purging. I'm not big on. In my experience, it's not so much that we can experience ego backlash, essentially that old man trying to pitch a fit and throw a fight, the old man fighting against the idea of change. But yeah, yeah. If we're noticing the opposite in the 3D, at one point, that 3D expression was a subconscious impression, whether we were aware of it or not. But that said, you can always change it. You can always change it, and in this case, I absolutely would. I would recommend revising it. Don't take that into consideration. Don't take that with you as a done deal and solid fact. Because it's never, if it's not what you want, don't accept it as final. Period. That's my spot. Hi, Lucy. Hi. I feel like there is so much to do between living in the end, I am meditation, revising, uprooting bad beliefs, self concept. How do you organize it into a tangible routine? Good question. So it feels overwhelming, the all the techniques that exist, I take it. Um, well, first we gonna have to understand living in the end is It's not separate from the techniques are there to help aid you in living in the end. And that's essentially just imagining yourself already experiencing what you desire to have or to see happen, right? That's all that means. Um, Uprooting bad beliefs, that happens when we continue to imagine living in the end. So some of these things they're not separate. Like it's not like we have to do separate routines for each one of these things that you're describing, if that makes sense. Self concept, the change in self concept, somehow that's become people take that as like a technique. Your concept of self is just the sum total of your beliefs and assumptions. It's not a technique. It's not a technique. And I don't know I don't know where that came from. A lot of people take it to mean like you have to do something separate for your self concept and for your person. No, no. Um, you change your self concept changes when we imagine something different, and imagination is the way in which we change that belief. We form a new assumption, right? If we continue to live in a new assumption in our imagination, that's what hardens into fact, as Neville would say. So really, whatever tool, whatever method, whatever technique best helps you to capture the feeling of already being the person you want to be, already having what you desire to experience, just keep it to that. Just use that. You keep it simple, right? Because a lot of the things, again, a lot of the things you're describing, they're not separate. So I hope that makes sense. So organize it into a tangible routine. Use whatever method or tool best helps you to capture the feeling of living in the end. That's that's the short and long of it. Can you do an I am meditation on your channel? Your meditations are excellent. Yes, yes, absolutely. I need to get back to finishing the recording. I have an I am meditation recorded. I just need to finish tweaking the audio. But yes. Yeah, it has been a while since I released a meditation, so I absolutely will get on that. My English has improved a lot because of your videos and Q&A. I'm doing very well in English classes that I take because of your influence. Aw, Chi-chan, that's wonderful. I love that. Yay. Congratulations. I'm happy to help. David, hello. Hello, hello. Hey, Missy, every time I sit to visualize and live in the end, my mind goes like, that's too much work. It's going to take a lot of time. Just let it go. And logically, it seems to make sense. Help me out. Yeah, yeah, that's a common thing a lot of people experience. It's and I certainly had this myself. Like sometimes the idea of sitting down to do techniques felt like a lot of work. It would feel overwhelming, and that. So first of all, we're always imagining, like in every moment. All throughout our day, we're always doing this. So if we're approaching this from the place of I need to do all these things to change the 3D, or I need to do all these things to make this thing happen, that's sort of where that resistance comes in, because it starts to feel like we have to do all this work, right? Um, and if that's what it feels like for you, we want to come back to remembering that this is only just to allow ourselves to feel what it would be like. We're just focused on the feeling, and we're just allowing ourselves to do it. Like there's really no work to do, because this is again, using our imagination is something that we're literally always doing. We're just more aware, we're more conscious of where we want to direct our attention and our focus instead of letting ourselves continue to mull into all of the things that were not ideal, all of the things that were terrible, our fears, our doubts. Instead of letting ourselves just get lost in that, we're deciding consciously to allow ourselves to feel something lovely, to feel something wonderful, right? That's literally all we do it. It's literally all we do it. We're doing this all the time, right? So as we begin to practice just allowing ourselves, like instead of looking at this like I need to force a change, I need to sit down and force myself to do something, like learn this whole new method and do all these things. No, no. This is just something we're naturally incorporating. We're naturally just letting ourselves go there. That's all. Thank you for the super chat. I will have to look into that and see what's going on. Perhaps I will absolutely look into that. Interesting. I'm so sorry about that. You're having issues with the payment? Hmm. I'll make a note of that. I'll see where I got to see if, yeah. My apologies. How to interact? Hi, Missy. How do we interact with the SP who is still in contact in good terms but is not committing to go back yet? Continue to keep going, basically. It's so easy for us to get detoured by the 3D, right? Like as soon as something happens in the 3D that perhaps is not ideal, it's so easy for us to get derailed by that. Don't let yourself get derailed by it. Revise it. If SP is not showing up in the way that you desire, then in your mind you need to continue seeing him how you would want to interact, right? As far as what to do in the 3D, that is entirely up to how you'd want to approach that. If you feel like you can continue to interact in the 3D with SP and not allow the circumstances to get to you, that's one thing. And by all means, I'm not saying you have to cut off contact or anything like that. But if you're noticing that it is affecting your ability to imagine, if it's continuing to, put you back into a state that is not ideal, that's frustrating and feels further away from what you want, then perhaps consider giving yourself a moment to really let yourself like ground first, right? Because we're so incredibly moved by the 3D. The 3D is so seemingly real. It seems so solid and fact, right? It's not, but it can certainly feel that way. So, um, yeah, if you're finding difficulty with an SP that you're in contact with, but they're not showing up how you want them to, um, and you feel like that is affecting your ability to continue living in the end, then take a moment to just let yourself get grounded first. Like get yourself more stable in that wish fulfilled feeling first and foremost. And just continue to go back to that. If something happens in the 3D that's not wanted, you can always revise it, but really focus on just grounding yourself first and foremost. And it is a practice. 1000% it's a practice. But yeah, like I personally was in a similar situation. Um, but because the 3D was affecting me so much, I was having a difficult time living in the end because of the hot and cold behavior, which would keep me in a state of double-mindedness. It was keeping me from living in the end. I chose to take some time to really focus on myself first. So, but again, not saying you have to do that. That was just something that helped me. Where was my spot? Good morning. Any tips on please stopping my mind from going to the how my desire will manifest? I know the how isn't my concern, but my mind is still going there. Absolutely. Yeah, this is one of the banes of our existence. Your logical mind, the rational mind, is not your friend in this process, and then that goes for everybody. Uh, that's purely stemming from ego. The ego always wants to feel like it's in control and that we have a handle on things in the 3D, um, which it really does need to come to a place like we need to come to peace with the fact that we're not gonna know the how. We're not ever gonna know. But that's not what we're being asked to do. We're not being asked to figure out how it's going to happen, right? So that's not our job. All that we are being asked to do is to just let ourselves go to that place. All we're being asked to do is prepare that place in imagination, and that's why I've really put an emphasis on like changing the perspective if need be. Like if it feels difficult because it feels like we need to change something, like we need to do something, and that rational, logical part of the mind is like, well, to take action, you need to have a plan, you need to know X, Y, and Z. Then instead, we want to take the approach of, I'm just imagining this because it feels good. Because it feels good. Because, if I had a choice between imagining something lovely and imagining something stressful and undesirable, I should be choosing that lovely thought or that lovely imaginal act anytime, right? If the alternative is to, sit in the stress and the unwanted and the negative, why would I choose that over something lovely? Do you know what I mean? I hope I'm making sense, but basically, it really is a self-surrendering. And by that I mean the self is not going to know the how ever. And I say just that. Like when I would have moments where my mind would try to do that, like, well, how is that going to work? What would need to happen? Who's going to help you? I would just say, I don't know. And that's okay because again, that's not what we're being asked to do. That's not our job. We're not here to figure out the plan. That's 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 all awareness. That's all the much higher self that's in control of all of that. So yeah, I stopped trying to fight it. I stopped trying to fight it. It really is a self surrender. Yeah. Do you think it's possible to learn to play an instrument just through imagining you're able to? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Oh, John, my cat went out on Christmas Eve in the snow and turned up 6 weeks later. Oh, yay. Yay. See, yeah. Yeah. They will find their way home. They always do. Can self-concept change with revision and observation? Absolutely. Absolutely it can. Yeah. 100%. And that's sort of the entire point of the techniques is to aid us in changing that self-concept, right? That should be at the ultimately the aim of what we wanna do, right? Everybody says it, everybody talks about, this is all about changing your self-concept because that's true. There is no one to change but self. If we want the outside to change, we must first be that change in imagination. We must become that change. And you can absolutely do that through revision and observation, 100%. I recommend looking up the book Your Body Keeps the Score. Yes, that is a fantastic read. Your Body Keeps the Score? Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Paul. That one's great. Hi, Missy. I want to manifest the job I dream of, but what if I don't have the complete qualifications to get the post? Thank you. Good question. Um, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Don't hold yourself back from imagining because of the lack in the 3D, or if we feel like we're not qualified, we feel like we don't have the chops, we can't, we don't have what it takes for whatever reason. Do not let that hold you back from imagining the end, from going to the end. And this is actually a really, really common way we end up shooting ourselves in the foot. And I need to make a video talking about this specifically, um, because this is something that Neville would talk about often. Uh, you know, even though he didn't have the money or the qualifications or anything like that, he didn't hold back in imagination. He never barred himself, and that was something he talked about often. Like, do not bar yourself in imagination. Don't take the limitations of the 3D with you into imagination, because again, imagination is limitless, completely limitless. We do not need to, jump through the same hoops that we would have to go through in the 3D. No. See yourself in that post or in that position and relish in it. Make that your home base. Make that your go-to, right? Just continue to allow yourself. And whatever would need to happen to make that come into fruition will happen. Yeah. But yeah, do not restrict yourself in imagination. Guys, that's so important. And it goes for everybody here. Hi, Missy. If our desires are realities which are already existing, why does it take time for them to manifest on the physical plane? Also, how do you deal with such failures? Please enlighten. Good question. Good question. Yeah. So, if everything already exists, if creation's finished, then why does it take time for them to manifest? Because in the 3D, we have this illusion of time, right? The 4D is not bound by the limitations of time. It's not bound to the rules of time, but the 3D is. The way that we're used to experiencing the 3D is series of events, right? Like we're looking at this like a linear timeline. So once you imagine something and you've selected that state, there would need to be, to us in the 3D, there would need to be a way for it to unfold naturally, right? And that's the difference. Like the unfolding part comes naturally to us, or what we would feel is natural in order for that to happen. That's why for most people, the idea of like just teleporting or snapping your fingers and it instantly appearing, that doesn't feel realistic. That doesn't feel feasible because we're very much conditioned to this idea of linear time, and the 3D follows the rules of linear time, right? So uh, it would need to appear that whatever the manifestation is, that it unfolds in a series of events, and that's why it's because that's how we are perceiving it and how we've been conditioned to perceive it. I hope that makes sense. You guys are the best. Hello from Liverpool. Hello. Hello, hello. I want to manifest a friends with benefits situation with SP. So should I just visualize some not safe for work scenes? I've done a couple and kind of acted out in real life. Is it okay, or do I have to do I have to be in SATs? No, you don't have to be in SATs. I mean, you can, but that's not the only way to imagine. Uh, yeah, yeah. Whatever the circumstances are, I would just continue to imagine that in whatever form comes most naturally to you. Absolutely. Hi, Missy. How do I revise a breakup to change it to mean it was a mutual separation where we are working on ourselves and will come back to each other better than ever? Do I script it out daily? Good question. Um, and I like that revised scene. I like that a lot. You don't need to script it out daily. No, I mean, if you wanted to, you could. There's no really right or wrong way to use the techniques. You could script it out once, and if you need to go back to it again, if you need to read it over again, sort of, reimagine it, that's fine. Uh, we just we want to revise it until it becomes it starts to feel far away from you. Like it starts to feel like maybe you can recall it happens, but it feels like almost like it's happened to somebody else. It's a weird feeling. But what you should start to notice if you're revising, that new memory should be the one that pops up first. And that's kind of how you know that that one has really begun to take a hold, right? So I would first script it, read it, imagine it, feel into it, which is the most important part. And then if any time you started to slip back into that old story, you can bring it back out and remind yourself, recondition it, basically. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, you don't need to script it out every day. I have a really bad feeling in my stomach whenever I think about my manifestation. How do I get rid of that? I think it's anxiety related. Oh, yeah, it's probably anxiety. Um, I guess the first thing that we would want to do is if you have techniques, if you have exercises to help you with anxiety, I would implement those first and foremost. Um, Basically, the first thing is alleviate the anxiety to the best of your ability. It's going to feel difficult when anxious to think or imagine something positive. It's going to feel like there's quite a bit of resistance to the idea. Like if I'm actively anxious, trying to picture something lovely is going to feel hard from that state. So first, I would alleviate the anxiety, right? And there's so many different methods and ways that you can do that. That's another video that I need to come out with, ways to help with anxiety, some exercises that you can do. One of my all-time favorites is breath work and breathing exercises. Like no joke, I know it sounds cliche, but there's a reason why it's so recommended. Breathing exercises are going to help signal to your brain that you're not in danger, and it could shut off that fight or flight, and it's going to help to put you into a more relaxed state, like truly. And there's also things like EFT tapping. There's a lot of different methods out there, but first alleviate the anxiety. And once you're in a more neutral space, like once you notice you're not feeling so anxious, perhaps you're feeling more relaxed, you're feeling better. And from there, you can go back to the end. Like from there, it's going to feel much easier to capture that feeling again of the wish fulfilled, if that makes sense. So alleviate the anxiety and then go back to the end. Hi, Missy. I wanted to give you a quick update. Everything with SP is back to normal, but I will continue to persist in the end I want with him and seriously apply everything I've learned from you. Oh, yay, Lucy. So good. Good. I'm glad. Yes, girl, keep going. Keep going. I'm glad resolution happened. I'm glad that things are back to normal. Yes, keep going. Keep going. Is the bridge of incidents based on your belief on what's natural? For example, a person has a belief in diet/exercise to lose weight will be willed to some action versus 50 pounds just falling off overnight. Yes. 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 That's the point I was trying to make, JT. That's it. The bridge of incidents always unfolds in a way that feels natural to us. And it can be tricky. When it comes to like testing the law or building up faith in the law, because the way that things unfold in the 3D feels so natural and like it would have happened that way anyways. It's so easy to chalk it up to coincidence because, yeah, it always happens in a way that feels like, oh, yeah, of course that would have happened. Right. So, yeah, if somebody has the belief that, through diet and exercise, that's how you lose weight, um, then that's what they're going to be willed to do versus, waking up one day 50 pounds lighter. Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you see kind of how that works? That's exactly right. What is imagination? Is that visualization, inner conversation, reading what you script over and over again? Good question. Important question. Imagination is your inner world. Imagination is what is taking place within you. It's what's taking place within the mind. So it's yes, it's visualization. Yes, it's inner conversations. Yes, it's reading what you wrote down. It's affirmations. All of that. We use our imagination for everything. We use it to solve problems. We use it to, yeah, have inner conversations. Anything taking place internally is imagination. And I'm really glad that you asked that to clarify because I know a lot of people think imagination means visualizing. And that's not that's not the scope of it, right? So when I say like live in your imagination, that just means in your mind, what are you doing and thinking and feeling internally and make sure that lines up with what you ultimately desire. Where's my spot? Yes, to more guided meditations. Your revision one has worked wonders for me. Oh, good. I'm glad. Good. Good. I'm happy. Yes, to more guided meditations. All right. Does revising, for example, an argument you've had with someone make them change their thought about what happened? Um, yeah, yeah, it certainly can and usually does. So if you have a fight with somebody and you revise it, typically speaking, they're like it's going to shift the dynamics. It's going to change the tone of what's happening in the 3D, right? Um, yeah, yeah. Revising the past absolutely does have a huge effect on what's going to happen in the future. On the spiritual path and seemingly unconscious world, I sometimes feel lonely. Luckily, I've been going within to seek love and bliss. Any thoughts on loneliness and spiritual awakening? Absolutely. And that's a really good question. I think this is something that I know I certainly had these moments when it feels like you've got nobody you can really talk to because friends and family and people in your 3D world are still very much asleep. I assume that's what you mean. And yeah, yeah. If you haven't already, and I know this is something that a lot of people do try to do, but in case you haven't already, I would seek out, um, even online, if you were to go, there's so many Facebook groups, there's so many like Reddit, the Neville Goddard subreddit. If you're talking about meeting like-minded people or building connections with like-minded people, Like, I know there's so many different places where you can, run into and make friends like that. But and if you aren't already, I would imagine the feeling of fulfillment and satisfaction that you're enriched with others. Like, you have the love and support of others, of like-minded people, and just let yourself enjoy that experience. Like, that's what I would be doing in imagination, and what I have done, certainly. But as far as, I guess, it's also realizing that there's so many like-minded folks out there, right? Um, we just need to shift into the state where we acknowledge that, where that's our perception, and they will come to you, or you will be led to, or you will be led to find them, or they will come to you. Yeah. Hope that makes sense. How do you ignore the third party when third party is very much there and SP constantly talks about third party? Good question. And again, I know that it's incredibly challenging at first to ignore the 3D when it feels like the 3D is in our face all the time, because it is. We live in this 3D world. We're having this 3D experience, and it feels very real to us, and completely understand that. Um, what we want to remember. I mean, first and foremost, if it's feeling challenging to do, and if you are able to, if you need to take some space away from those people around you, like, and I don't know your circumstances exactly, but if you're able to take a moment to just sort of give yourself some space away from the 3D shenanigans, I would recommend doing that, even for just a brief spell, just to help really strengthen and solidify that conviction within you. Because when you have the conviction within you that this is done, this is a done deal, nothing is going to change that, the 3D is not going to affect us. It's not going to have the effect on us, truly. And that's really the entire point. We're aiming to get to a place where we feel so comfortable and confident in what we've imagined that even with the 3D showing us otherwise, we're not going to be phased by it. It's not going to matter. So if you're able to give yourself the space to perhaps strengthen that in your imagination, I would recommend doing so. Again, you don't have to. I don't know the circumstances, but um, this is all a practice of taking the attention away from the 3D. Every time you close your eyes, the 3D doesn't exist anymore. Like that's kind of the mentality that we need to start taking on. When we go within the 3D, like, go within as if the 3D doesn't exist in those times, right? Like, truly, truly, truly have to begin to recondition this. Because if we continue to let ourselves be, you know, taken by the 3D circumstances, it's just going to feel like we're in a constant battle. So give yourself space if you need it. Excuse me. Give yourself space if you need it, to just continue to strengthen that resolve within you. And it will get easier and easier to do. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you. Thank you. Revision guidance, please. I have a relationship with a new partner and is perfect, but the past relationship where I was chasing him hurts me. Fear of the hurtful past being repeated doesn't allow me to express feelings now. Absolutely. So you're in a new relationship, and everything's going good, but fears of the old relationship are still sort of keeping you in that place of, what if something bad happens, right? Fear of hurtful past being repeated. Yeah, then I would absolutely revise whatever happened in the past, especially if there's any one particular or two particular memories that stick out. If you're having intrusive memories that keep coming back to you of that old story, and you know the feelings of hurt, those are the ones that I would revise, right? Um, So basically, yeah, the first one or two memories that pop up, the ones that really stick out as like having the most effect and having the biggest impression on you, I would revise those. And I would continue to revise until that new memory feels natural, until it feels like that is what happened instead. I hope that makes sense. If you need me to elaborate on anything else, let me know. But 100% take what you feel had the biggest impact and take what you feel had the biggest impact and revise and continue to revise until it's no longer a thing that comes up in your mind. My connection with SP is okay in the 3D, and I'm manifesting next level. I feel like I'm living two parallel lives in the 3D and 4D, which sometimes confuses me. Any tips on how to keep persisting and still enjoying the 3D? Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good question. And it does. It certainly can at moments feel like we're living this double life. um, but the more that you delve into this practice, you're going to realize more and more that the 3D is truly just a shadow. It's just the outpicturing, it's the reflection of, the thoughts and feelings and impressions that were left yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, etc. Um, so get more and more familiar with what you desire to experience. As far as what you want to experience, keep it in imagination. Like until it begins to express itself in the 3D, I would continue to focus on the 4D experience because that's everything. That is the cause. 100%. Yeah. I mean, but that said, don't put your life on hold, right? You can absolutely still enjoy the 3D while at the same time knowing that your manifestation is done or knowing that this is guaranteed to you, if that makes sense. You can absolutely do both. Hey, Missy, I would love to hear your thoughts on robotic affirmations. Do you believe that they're worth trying out? So, so I did make a video. It was a few months ago. It's not an old video, but one that wasn't released recently. I am going to make another video, kind of talking more about this. But robotic affirmations are they going to work 100% of the time for everybody? I mean, I think that they are worth playing around with. I think that if you have not ever used affirmations and you would like to try it, I would still recommend using affirmations that resonate. I would use affirmations that like build you up and sort of get you riled and get you jazzed and get you feeling really good, right? I wouldn't recommend to just parrot the affirmation like listless and substance. No, I don't recommend doing that. Um, because again, it's the feeling, it's getting behind it, right? And that's it. Feeling is truly the secret. And by feeling, it's the feeling of naturalness. It's the feeling of familiarity. It's the feeling of this is normal for me. And that's kind of what we want to focus on. Um, yeah, do recommend checking out the video I made about affirmations, the last one that I made. If you type it in the search bar, I think it's titled "Why Your Affirmations Aren't Working" or something like that. I go a lot more into detail about robotic affirmations, but honestly, if parroting something a million times Like I could sit here and affirm that I'm a tree until, the end of time, but I'm never going to believe that. Never gonna believe that. So there's more effective ways to go about it is what I'm saying. I would play around with the words of the affirmations. I would, just experiment with what feels good, what feels natural, something that you can get behind. And that was kind of the point of the video that I just released yesterday, is that we want to explore what feels best for us because it's not going to be the same for everyone. And I hope that helps. Despite unfavorable 3D, I felt happy and unbothered for a few weeks. However, this week I'm suddenly feeling hopeless and really low. How to return to this state when everything seems too overwhelming? Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry. So, the first thing, if you're noticing feeling down, feeling anxious, perhaps there's a lot of, doubt and dread and uncertainty. From that state, the first thing that I would do, that like what would be the priority is to help alleviate some of that anxiety, help to alleviate some of that negative feeling, right? And I mentioned this in a question that was asked just a little while back, but there's a lot of different exercises and things that we can do to help alleviate that anxiousness, that feeling of sadness, whatever might be going on. Um, be it meditation, be it breathing exercises, be it tapping, there's many different exercises and things that we can do to help get us, first and foremost, get us to a place that's like more neutral. Because trying to feel good from a state that feels like crap, there's a lot of resistance there. There's going to feel like a lot of resistance there. If we try to force ourselves to imagine the wish fulfilled and we're in a very anxious and down and out state, that can feel very challenging to do. So, first thing is to sort of alleviate that anxiety first, right? Get yourself to a place that feels more even just neutral, even if that's just like needing to let it out and have a good cry and just, get whatever is perhaps stuck within you and process it, release it, react to it if you have to. Get it out, and from there, typically speaking, people feel much lighter. They feel better. And that from that state, it's going to feel much easier to then start to turn things around, if that makes sense. But I know for myself personally, if when I would try to force myself to feel good when I was feeling bad, wall of resistance. Like wall of resistance. So, yeah, and something else that I would recommend too is having a playlist, having something curated to where, on those days and in those moments where you're not feeling so great, you're feeling bummed, you're down and out, just something to help you feel better. Perhaps a collection of motivational videos, things that inspire you, cute baby animals, just things that fascinate you, just something to help you like lift your mood, if if nothing else. Like that really did help me. Having something that I like could go to and keep myself occupied and help to like bring myself back around to the feeling of better, like just alleviate that anxiety, that really helped to do so. So again, things like breathing exercises, things like meditation, things like having that curation of videos that help to inspire you and motivate you and feel better. I absolutely recommend that first. And then from that neutral place, once you reach that place where, you feel better, then turn your attention back to living in the end. I hope that makes sense. What if I'm manifesting being a tree? Hey, you do you. JT, no judgment. If that's your desire, I respect that. My end state technically would occur within a few years. Married with SP, dream job, and location. I sometimes feel the bridge would take time despite knowing that time doesn't exist. Any tips? Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we're the whole point of going to the end and practicing going to the end is to start to deconstruct that the idea of time, right? We're so conditioned to time, and it's a huge sticking point for a lot of people. It certainly was for me. And the reason that we want to practice just letting ourselves go there, just letting ourselves experiencing in imagination is we're naturally going to start to deconstruct that conception of time. That's it's going to become less and less of an issue or a point of resistance, right? Because as we know, there is no time in imagination. We get to bypass all of that, right? And you would be amazed at how quickly things could happen. I mean, truly, things that we perhaps now would think take years or it would take a long time, not necessarily the case. It's not necessarily the case. So, anytime you notice that feeling come up for you, it's your cue to give yourself that experience in imagination. It's been too long since you've had that experience in imagination. You've been out in the 3D world for too long. Time to go back to that experience in imagination and just continue to do so. And this whole idea of time will deconstruct for you. It will. Hi, Missy. I've had tons of movement lately. Yay! Any tips on avoiding the temptation of checking the 3D and staying inward when things are going well? Absolutely. There's nothing you're going to find out in the 3D. As far as like future movement or signs, you're not going to ever find that in the 3D. The 3D is all the reflection. It's all out picturing. It's all old news. All of it. And that's like literally remind yourself it whenever you're tempted to check the 3D. No, we're not going to find new information. The only feedback we get from the 3D is states of consciousness that we've been dwelling in, we're dwelling in. It's all the old out picturing. So it can give you insight as to perhaps what you've impressed, like the states that you were occupying, but it's not going to give you any like. Yeah, I made a video recently about signs and birds before land. I think the video before last. If you haven't seen it, I would check that out. But there's nothing to look for in 3D. Give yourself that experience first in imagination. Every time you tempted to check the 3D, check it in imagination. Since I started going all in on manifesting, following the logic steps to do things has become harder. Like my brain refuses to do it. Is it normal? Um, and if you can be a little bit I'm curious what you mean by logic steps. Following the logic steps, because logic is not our friend here. When it comes to conscious manifestation, the logical mind, the rational mind, is not our friend. It's not our friend. So I'm not sure if that's what you mean. Um, if you're feeling resistance to a technique, if it feels like you're experiencing a lot of pushback to any kind of technique, it means that you're putting too much effort behind it, right? Like basically trying too hard to make sure that this thing is perfect, focusing too much on the logistics and details of the technique versus the feeling of it. Just allowing yourself to feel into it. So that's and which is incredibly normal. It's incredibly normal to notice those types of feelings. It's incredibly normal to notice a lot of resistance because the way that we approach manifestation with techniques is I need to do XYZ perfectly or I'm not going to get the thing, right? Scrap all of that. Scrap all of it. And I recommend checking out the last video. If you haven't seen my last video that I released yesterday, I would recommend doing so. So I can talk more about techniques and all of that fun stuff. But if I'm misunderstanding, because again, I don't know what you mean by logic steps. So if you want to elaborate, Perhaps, yeah, I may have totally misunderstood. And if that's the case, I'm sorry. Can you expound on feeling, referring to the naturalness of it versus emotions? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I have made a recent video about this, but the frustrating part is the word feeling, because that damn word has like 80 definitions. It can mean so many different things. And a lot of people are confusing that with emotion. So when we say feel it real or feeling is the secret, a lot of people mistake that to mean emotions, like feel the deep, strong emotions. Um, the naturalness of it is just that. Like, what is an experience like when it feels natural to you? It doesn't really, like, as far as emotions go, there may not even be that many emotions tied to it. It's more of a knowing. It's more of a knowing, it's more of a certainty. Like, we don't even think about something, like, I don't ever, like, I don't even think about the fact that I have brown hair, the fact that I have a pickup truck. These are things that I just know. I know them to be true. So it's not that I have to feel all sorts of, like, I don't have to be vibrating with excitement because of my truck. Like, I know it's there in the driveway, if that makes sense. So a lot of times when people try to force the feeling, like the emotion of it, that's a sticking point for a lot of people. They're trying to force themselves to be all excited and over the moon and like these big, huge emotions, um, which is it's going to hard to do by force, right? Like that's not really something we can easily tap into through conscious willpower. And so instead, it's just getting familiar in imagination to this experience till the point that it feels like a natural everyday part of your life, right? You're not you're not you're not over the moon about it, right? You're not like, again, you're not vibrating with excitement. It just is. It's a knowing. Like, this is who I am. This is how my life is, if that makes sense. But check out the video that I made talking about feeling. It's a couple ones back, but I talk about what feeling is the secret actually means. Thank you for the super chat. SP is in no contact. I'm feeling a bit frustrated not to see anything. I know looking is part of the problem, but to be honest, having been mostly steady, am I missing something? So you're in an SP situation that's no contact, frustrated not to see anything. I know looking is part of the problem. Yeah. Um, looking forward implies that we don't have it. Continuing to look outside of you is continuing to impress, like, we're bringing into awareness, I don't have it, right? Especially when we acknowledge the 3D lack and the feeling reaction that we have, the feeling of, we're annoyed, we're frustrated, we feel anxious. I mean, that's all saying I don't have it, right? And that's like, I know, I know one of the hardest things that we learn, one of the biggest things that we struggle with is the 3D and checking the 3D. But there is nothing there in the 3D that you can find it for new information. Like, if you're noticing that frustration, like, that's your feedback, that's your cue that it has been too long since we've been in imagination, right? So go there in imagination. Give yourself that experience in imagination. Every time you are feeling tempted to check the 3D, that's your cue. Time to go back to imagination. It's been too long. I've been out in the 3D for too long. Time to go back. Time to go back. Because we will not find it if we continue to look for it in the 3D. We won't. We just won't. So, and I know how frustrating it is. I know how frustrating it can be. But the entire point of this is to change the perspective. It's to give ourselves the experience of what we desire before the 3D circumstances before the 3D shows up in the way that we want it to. All right? You got this. You got this. You got this. I believe in you. You got this. Full stop. Oh my God, Lexi! My SB just texted me. He loves me. Girl! That's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations, Lexi. What did I tell you? What did I tell you? Ignore the 3D. None of that information's none that's all old news. It feels like I've been persistent though. It feels like I've been steady. I mean, you may not have had strong reactions to the 3D, right? I mean, but if we've been aware of absence and where is it and it's not here yet, to reaction doesn't have to be like an emotional reaction. It doesn't have to be emotionally charged. But if we are continuing to look outside of us and acknowledge that it's not here yet, what seed is that impressing? Like what seed is being planted when we do that, right? So again, like whenever we notice it, whenever we become aware of the absence of it, that is our cue. Time to go back. Time to go back to imagination. Could this be needing a stronger scene? Perhaps. Yeah. I mean, if it feels like there's something that you need to, like, if you want to change up the scene, if you want to change up what you've been imagining, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, we don't have to keep imagining the same thing over and over. We can change it up. We can spice it up. Lexi, I'm watching your manifestation play out in real time. This is wild. I'm so happy for you. Thank you guys. Live in the end. Listen to her, you guys. Live in the end. That is awesome. I asked a YouTuber a perfectly valid question, and she was extremely patronizing. She got the "Did you even watch my video?" So I unsubscribed. No one speaks to me like, yeah, no, there's no. We don't need to show any disrespect. Yeah, I'm not about that. I'm not about that. Yeah, yeah. Don't accept the disrespect from anybody. Anybody. Hey Missy, I work at night and have had a difficult time doing sats or focusing on my wish fulfilled. I have less time where I'm feeling normal and find manifestation more difficult. Any tips to help? Absolutely. So if I mean if nighttime is not a good time for you to do it, because of the work schedule, play around with in the mornings or afternoons. And this is where I talk in my last video about we just want to first and foremost experiment, like experiment with times of the day, uh, different types of techniques, different methods, exercises, and just feel around with what comes more naturally, right? Um, in this case, if doing sats at night is not feasible for you, if it's not an option for you, you can try it in the morning. You can try it in meditation during the day. You can do it on your lunch break, right? Yeah, we don't have to limit sats to before bed. That we can do sats anytime, literally anytime. But yeah, just play around with different times of the day and see what feels best, basically. But that experimentation is so important. Like play with these techniques, play with these exercises, play with your own imagination. Just play. Give yourself permission to be a kid and just play. I'm telling you. I love it. I love it. I love it. Congratulations, Lexi. Oh, I'm so happy for you. Will you update us on Haley's progress as it happens? It's seriously amazing, and she gave great tips. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I have to run it by her, but I don't think that she'd mind. And Haley is incredible. She is an incredible human being. And yeah, I told her, keep me updated. Keep us all updated. If you have two SPs and you have feelings for both, one is in no contact and one is in minimal contact, how do you choose which one to focus on? Good question. What do you do if you have multiple SPs and you don't know what to choose or where to focus? In circumstances like this, if it feels like um, have trouble deciding or where to focus, I would focus instead on just the more general concept. I would go more general in that case. I would just focus on the feeling of a loving, fulfilling relationship, right? Just that loving, committed relationship. Um, Not have a specific person tied to it, or see a specific face tied to it. Just keep it more general. If you don't if you don't perhaps care, like you could go with either. There's no preference for one over the other. You just go more general, and then just see how things unfold. In Scotland, pickup trucks are associated with mountain bikers or people who own chainsaws. Well, I have both, so I guess the stereotype fits here in the US. Mm, this is so good to see. Hey, Missy, thanks for all you do. What do what to do when your affirmations start to work? How to be sure that they have already impressed in my mind? What do you recommend? Absolutely. So you'll know the affirmations are working, um, because you'll notice that you're feeling different. You're going to notice a change in your feelings. You're going to notice a change in your thoughts. You're going to notice just a shift in your overall mood. Um, you'll know it's working because you're going to start to feel different. You're going to start to react differently. Um, that's really how you know that they're working. Um, and trust that once impressed, it has to unfold. It has to unfold, right? But if you're already starting to notice the 3D changes happening around you, yeah, trust the process. Keep going. You'll know because there's a change in you, right? Going back to there's no one to change but self. We're not changing anything on the outside. We're changing self first and foremost and always. How to differentiate between inspired this is an important question. How to differentiate between inspired action versus me acting out due to anxiety and trying to fix the situation when I shouldn't? That's a good question, because I think most people have done this. I've certainly done this so many times. Inspired action is unconscious. You're not going to like when the bridge starts to unfold, you're not going to be consciously dictating it. You're not going to be trying to fix it. Like, you're going to be naturally moved to do something, or somebody else is going to come in and do something. Like, it's going to happen in a way that you're not going to see it's a bridge until hindsight. And that's really important to stress, because if you're thinking about, like, I need to reach out and do something, that's typically stemming from a place of trying to fix the situation or move the situation along or something along those lines. Inspired action is unconscious, it's subconscious. Like, you will be naturally moved to whatever needs to happen, it will unfold for you. But if you're trying to leap in there to do damage control, do it in imagination. Do it in imagination. History isn't relevant when sorry. History isn't relevant between people, right? That's just circumstance. As in, I don't have to have had a long relationship prior with SB. Yeah, no. No. None of that's relevant. There's no conditions to living in the end. Like, it's not that you need to have been with your person for X amount of time for you to manifest them. No. Some coaches say drop the SP entirely and only work on your self concept. What are your thoughts? Good question. Well, I mean, I agree that focusing on self concept is what ultimately, I mean, that's what manifests. That's what we need to do. But there is no separation between, like, your self concept and your idea of the other person. That's all self concept. Your self concept are your beliefs and assumptions about you, other people, the world around you, what you're assuming other people are assuming about you. All of that is self concept. So a lot of people have this idea that we need to, like, focus on these general affirmations, like, I am loved, I'm chosen, I'm this, I'm that. Um, that's self-esteem, right? Self-esteem is our beliefs and assumptions about ourselves, like what we believe and assume about us. Self-concept embodies so much more than that. It embodies your perceptions about other people, what you think about other people, like what you believe other people think about you, how you think the world works, like all of that. It's all your perception. So, to drop the SP, I don't know. For a lot of people, that's going to be much easier said than done. So I don't really like that approach so much. It's like when somebody's sad and you're like, oh, just get over it, just stop being sad. Like, like, gee, thanks, I'm cured. Like, doesn't work like that. Yeah. But the focus is continuing to go to the end, continuing to imagine that reality. That state of consciousness, what you desire, is already in existence. That's already a real place that you can dwell and you can experience in the 3D. And in fact, you were meant to experience that. That's why you have desires in the first place. If you weren't meant to have that experience, you would not desire it, period. So that's the whole idea of changing your self concept. It's continuing to become familiar with the version of you that already has your desire. I hope that makes sense. All right, let me find my spot. I heard from another channel say the way to manifest contact from SP is to dwell in the end. He basically is saying that affirmations like SP thinks about me 24/7 are a waste of time and no contact. Well, I mean, I don't like to speak in absolutes, because there are people that swear by affirmations, swear that it's helped them, and that's great. If you, but in a lot of those cases, from what I've seen, it's people that already had that belief to begin with, or it was a belief that they could get behind ultimately. But I do agree 100% that continuing to dwell in the end, continuing to put yourself there in imagination is 1000% the way to go. That I absolutely agree with. But if affirmations are what help you do that, if through affirmations you are able to capture that feeling of the end, then great. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. But yeah, we want to continue to, regardless of the 3D circumstances, we want to continue to go to imagination. Like there's no limits in imagination, and we want to learn to not restrict ourselves in imagination. We do not want to take the limitations of the 3D with us into imagination. That's the one of the biggest things that we're learning to overcome. Hello, Apollo. I remember you. Yeah. Welcome, welcome. All right, I got time for maybe one or two more questions. Here's my spot. How are you imagining during the day when not home, if not through affirmations? How was I imagining in the day to day if not for affirmations? Well, we're always imagining. This is something that we're always doing. There's always that inner world, right? We're always entertaining that inner world in some form or another. We have that inner dialogue. We've got, you know, we're thinking about the future. We're thinking about things from the past. That's all imagination. Every time that we're, dwelling on something, that's all imagination, and we're doing this all the time with everything. So I just became more and more observant and became more aware of where I was putting my attention and focus. I was continuing to catch myself if I was dwelling in a thought that was not ideal, or I was entertaining this worst case scenario. Like, that's where I would catch myself. That's where I would learn to redirect. And I learned to start getting better and better at putting my attention instead on those circumstances and outcomes that were desirable, that were ideal. Right? Um, Personally, affirmations were not my go-to. It was not is not my go-to. But there are many, many ways that we can live in the end throughout the day, that other than affirmations. That is true. Hello, Sarah. Hi. Missy, I finally manifested a cat. She's so pretty, but it's been hard to get her to warm up. Trying to ignore the 3D now with her and not accepting now as final. Good. Yeah, don't accept it. And congratulations on your kitty. Yay. Yeah. Yeah, trust the process. Trust the process. She's just acclimating. She's just getting warmed up. She's just getting used to you. She will be a happy, fat, snoozing cat in no time. I'm so curious about this. Were my reactions to my SP also a manifestation of what he thought about himself? Thank you so much. That's a that's a good question. Were your reactions a manifestation of what he thought about himself? No, it's in our reality, like through our eyes and what we are experiencing. It's our beliefs, it's our assumptions, right? We have assumptions about other people and what we assume other people assume, right? I hope I'm making sense. We have perception about other people and what they think and what they feel, um, but that's still us manifesting it, right? We're still selecting the state where that is how they show up, if that makes sense. So, our reactions to other people are insight into what we believe and assume either about that person or a belief in general, right? Like a general belief about other people. But regardless, whatever is showing up in your reality, it's based on your beliefs and assumptions. So yeah. And I know that that can be tricky to kind of turn it around, but yeah. Just remember through your eyes, in your experience, it's all your self-concept. Oh, the choker is back. I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing it back. You guys are amazing. You're so amazing. Oh god, I want to stay here all day and hang out with you guys. You are the absolute best. Unfortunately, I do have to get going. Just seeing the time again. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me. I love the questions. You guys have incredible questions that you asked. I hope this helped to give you some insights. I hope this helped just continue to change the perspective, right? Thank you so much again for being here. Thanks for joining. I hope to see you all next week. Much love to each of you and see you next time. Bye, guys.